Amid rising tensions and diplomatic whirlwinds, NATO defense chiefs convened virtually as Western powers race to shape Ukraine's future. Fresh off Trump's surprise Alaska summit with Putin and Zelensky's White House push, security guarantees are now at the center of a high-stakes game. Britain and France eye peacekeeping roles, Japan signals readiness to join, and US officials hint at deeper involvement even as Moscow warns of confrontation. Drone attacks flaring over NATO's border and plans for multinational troop deployments emerging. The alliance stands at a crossroads. Deterrence, diplomacy, or escalation? Welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
The Independent has reported that in a crucial virtual meeting, NATO defense chiefs are discussing security guarantees for Ukraine. This comes amidst ongoing diplomatic efforts, including recent high-level meetings between US President Donald Trump and his Russian and Ukrainian counterparts aimed at forging a peace agreement. A key challenge is defining a post-conflict security framework for Ukraine that is acceptable to all parties. Kyiv insists on strong Western-backed assurances to deter future Russian aggression, while Russia has rejected the presence of NATO troops on Ukrainian soil. As airstrikes continue to target Ukrainian civilians, the urgency for a viable solution grows. This meeting highlights the international community's struggle to balance a diplomatic end to the war with Ukraine's need for a durable, long-term security solution. According to the New York Times, the situation regarding Ukraine's future security is incredibly complex. While President Trump's recent commitment to assist in security guarantees for Ukraine is a significant development, the specifics remain largely either undefined. European leaders are keen on an Article 5-like assurance, but Russia's firm stance against NATO presence in Ukraine presents a formidable obstacle. The core issue revolves around how to secure Ukraine without provoking further Russian aggression. Discussions involve a potential coalition of the willing from European nations, possibly deploying a limited number of troops away from the front lines, with the US providing intelligence and air power. However, the exact commitment from various European states remain a critical, unanswered question. Ultimately, achieving a lasting peace settlement hinges on reconciling Ukraine's need for robust security with Russia's geopolitical red lines. This is a delicate balancing act, and as we've seen, President Putin's current focus seems far from seeking a genuine end to the conflict. NATO's top generals meet in a high-stakes summit as Trump's security pledge ignites plans for Ukraine's future defense, robust Western backing, no US troops, and Turkey emerging as a key peace broker.
High-level momentum is building across the Atlantic. NATO's military chiefs from all 32 member states are convening in a critical summit, focused squarely on Ukraine's future security architecture. This is not just routine planning, it is a direct response to seismic diplomatic shifts triggered by President Donald Trump's surprise assurance in Washington. The US will help guarantee Ukraine's security post-conflict. But here is the catch. Trump simultaneously rolled out deploying American combat troops. His pledge? Robust support, just not boots on the ground. Which brings us to NATO's delicate calculus. European powers are now advancing plans to station forces in Ukraine as part of binding security guarantees. The US backs the idea, financially and logistically, but keeps its soldiers out. Meanwhile, diplomacy pivots through Ankara. Turkish President Erdogan and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte spoke at length about durable security frameworks, underscoring Turkey's growing role as mediator, especially in Black Sea security and potential Russia-Ukraine leader talks. Turkey's strategic geography and neutrality makes it a linchpin. Erdogan even offered to host a historic Zelensky-Putin summit, though Moscow insists it would be in Russia, a proposal Kiev has rejected. Behind closed doors, Pentagon planners are running war games, assessing everything from rapid response units to air defense coordination. But nothing moves without consensus and, crucially, without deterring further Russian escalation. NATO is no longer just arming Ukraine, it's architecting its defense for the decades ahead. The message is clear. Peace must be enforced by credible, multinational power anchored in unity, but shaped by realism.
To help provide more analysis about the most recent updates concerning the meeting between NATO military leaders regarding Ukraine, we're joined from Paris by Mr. Meher Nicholas Ferzetti, Director of the EU ASEAN Centre, and Dr. Majid Boudin, an international law professor. Thank you both for joining us here on Think Tank. And we start off with you, Mr. Ferzetti, here. With NATO planning a post-war security framework for Ukraine, how viable is a coalition of the willing without Article 5 coverage?
I'm delighted to join you today, and the short answer is not very viable. So the devil is in the details, right? The only way to make it viable without American boots on the ground is an ironclad underwriting of the peace treaty by the might of the American military, right? So if there's a signature, a real binding signature of the Pentagon and the White House at the bottom of that peace treaty, hopefully between Russia and Ukraine, then the credibility of that peace treaty and the security guarantees attached to it will be serious. Mm-hmm. So far, we don't have the details. I doubt the details will be finalized before 2-3 weeks, at least. It may take 2 months. I think it is the end. It is the end of the end. But usually in military and geopolitical matters, the end of the end is very painful. And, the coalition of the willing without America is not very serious. Mm-hmm. The concept itself was invented or was reinvented by the likes of Joe Biden and Tony Blinken, and they are the ones, the Blinken, Biden, White House, they are the ones who told Macron and the Germans and the Brits, you should come up with the coalition of the willing. And back then, America was aligned with Europe, so they said, oh yeah, it's great. We, the Germans and the French and the British, we are the coalition of the willing. And even if Trump, God forbid, wins the presidential election against Kamala Harris or Joe Biden in November, you know what? We are willing, we are blah, blah, blah. So the term coalition of the willing is not even a European term. It's an American invention, and it's a wink. It's a very problematic wink to George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, because we all remember that the initial expression coalition of the willing was invented in the year 2002 by Dick Cheney and George Bush when they wanted to invade Iraq illegally. So to make a long story short, the coalition of the willing itself is ridiculous. It has no power. It has no credibility. However, if there is a strong underwriting by America, it may be viable.
Is this still something that's a possibility that maybe America will somehow provide the strong backing that you're talking about?
It is a possibility if the details are right. And here there's only one thing which will make it viable, if both parties make concessions. So now It's true, there are hardliners, ultra-Russian nationalists in Moscow, it's true. But there are also hardliners and extremists in Ukraine, in Berlin, in Paris. And the hardliners, of course, on both sides, they want to continue the war. They want war forever, perpetual war.
Yes.
So what I'm coming at is both sides need to make concession to reach a middle of the road solution. So middle of the road solution is not perfect, is not, ideal, blah, 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 but it's a real life thing.
Yes.
So if they both make concessions, they will reach that middle point where they can have an amicable, agreeable, serious, credible peace treaty. I think that's exactly what the White House wants. That's exactly the objective of Trump himself. But I think the Europeans are not there yet. There's a professor of psychology, a Swiss-American professor. Her name was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she came up with the near-life experience acceptance model. There are 5 stages of acceptance: denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and at the very end, acceptance. I think until now, the French, the German, the European Commission were very angry. So they had only reached the anger stage. Now they are depressed. They are in the middle of depression. Maybe next week or next month,
there'll be
they will
acceptance. Yes. Okay, Dr. Boudin, if we could get your opinion here. Now, I'm sure you've heard what Mr. Fazili just said there. Can security guarantees from non-NATO countries be legally binding without a UN or treaty framework? And, also Mr. Fazili talked about the idea of finding some sort of middle ground to resolve this issue.
We are today in a situation where we are using words as a suitcase words. It means we don't know what's inside. So nobody can have a peace treaty without having its elements clearly on the table, because the will of the nations is built on practical matters, on material matters. And today, we are not at this stage. We are at the stage of negotiating on the negotiations. What is that? And Vladimir Putin is very clever in this matter. We have Vladimir Putin who is playing chess. We have the Chinese on the other side. They are in their corner, but they are playing a Go game. And we have Donald Trump playing poker. But all these three games, they don't have the same strategies. So when Donald Trump has met Vladimir Putin, they have agreed on how to make a deal. And the deal was that, number one, Ukraine will not join NATO. Number two, Ukraine must abandon all the occupied lands, Donbass, Crimea. And this is the deal reached by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Then the Europeans came in and they said they will accompany Volodymyr Zelensky to Washington to avoid what happened in March and to have a sound meeting. And they have a good argument on that, but because they have convinced President Trump that they have an interest in this meeting because the war is in Europe, on the European lands. So here we have, it was a compromise on the negotiations that the Europeans will join. And when they have joined, the equation has changed, not dramatically, but in a sensible way. In which way? That Donald Trump has accepted that there will be that these two items agreed upon with President Putin are not irreversible. They are negotiable. So then this is the sense and the meaning of the meeting in Washington between the French, the German, the British, the German, the Finnish, the Italian leaders, and the EU Commissioner and the NATO Secretary General. So, and with Vladimir Zelensky. So there is a change. And now we are talking about where to have a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky. And they are now debating on the place to be. And the place is a symbolic matter. And we have now Switzerland and...
Yes, it's on the table. But sir, I don't quite gather with what you're saying there. Do you feel like there is a possibility of reaching a deal? Is it like an imminent thing? Or is this just like what you said, different games, whether it be chess or, some other form of strategy?
The different games you see, the chess is a long-term, is a deep, and the Russians are clever in that, like other people in the Middle East. They know how to play chess.
Yes.
Poker is a matter of bluff. Okay, and it's a short term. So the matter is on the negotiations, and how to negotiate, the matter, how we could enter into the negotiations. Now we are on the second step. We will start the negotiations. Now, when we see the gathering, the meeting in NATO, the military leaders of the NATO, to decide what they will do, they will elaborate ways to guarantee a peace treaty. Mm-hmm. This is a technicality. So we are now negotiating on a tool, on an instrument of the treaty, not on the content of the treaty. Yes. The content of the treaty is political and is legal. And here comes the influence of the first meeting in Washington. What it is that, number one, these conditions of Russia to keep Crimea and Donbass is not an accomplished fact. Mm-hmm. It will be negotiated. But the second point is on which base where the parties will negotiate. Will they negotiate on the base of international law, or will they negotiate on the base of what happened on the ground and what is conquered by force? And then we will change. Yes. We will shift from the rule of law to the rule of force. And here, this matter is not settled. This is why the European Union is playing a very crucial role. And they have influence. They have changed the equation, and they will continue to change the equation. And here, there is a problem which could be of interest to the Middle East settlement, what's going on now. Europe needs. They cannot negotiate by themselves. They need Brazil. They need South Africa.
They need help, basically. But if we could also get Mr. Fazili's opinion here as well. Do you agree there with Dr. Boudin that basically each party to this negotiation is playing different games, whether it be chess, poker, or something else? Especially given the images that we've seen from both meetings, like when we saw Putin with Trump. They were on equal footing, unlike, when Trump met with the European leaders, it almost seemed like, Trump had the upper hand in these images. Do you also see the differences in the way things have been handled?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think the Europeans would like to believe that they are smart and sophisticated, and they would like to believe that, Trump is a short-term, illiterate poker player. I think it's a cliche. Look at what happened in Aberdeen. In Aberdeen 3 weeks ago, the cream de la cream, the elite of France, Germany, and the European Commission, they met with Trump 3 weeks ago in northern Scotland, in Aberdeen, to negotiate the future of Europe's economy and trade. And they had said for years, we are the elite, we are smart, we are a superpower. And in less than half an hour, they yielded to Trump on all fronts, finance, economy, military issue. Ursula von der Leyen, she came out of the Aberdeen summit 3 weeks ago crying. So it's not very good, not very smart, to believe that the Europeans are sophisticated and that the Americans are cowboys who play poker. I don't believe it's true. I think Trump is surrounded by a school of thought, by intellectuals, public intellectuals, military strategists, financial strategists, who are super smart. All of them are Princeton, Harvard, MIT graduates. If you look at the CVs, the resumes of the advisors of President Trump and his cabinet members, on average, they're much better than the resumes or the CVs of the ministers of France and Germany. So they're not poker players, they're not imbeciles. They are cold-blooded neo-realists. They believe in Nixonian foreign policy and military strategy, and they're super smart. So it's not true to say that the Russians and the French play chess, but the Americans play poker. No, it's not true. I think the key issue here is the following, Europe is self-deluded. They speak in the name of universal values and democracies, as if Macron and von der Leyen had a monopoly on universal values and democracy, as if the Americans did not believe in democracy and humanism. It's a lie. It's a big lie. Why is it a lie, And the idea that they cannot infringe upon international law because it would set a bad precedent. It is, of course, a lie.
Yeah.
What happened in 1997? Illegally, the Europeans, they took away Kosovo, which had been a province of Serbia for the past 2,000 years, and illegally, the Europeans, they redrew the borders of Kosovo and Serbia. So it's not true that international borders are sacred. It's a fiction.
Yes, absolutely true. And also, if I could follow up there, sir, you talked about the idea of, Europeans believing that they're more sophisticated than their American counterparts. But at the same time, there's also the issue of, Trump saying that, yes, he will back security guarantees when it comes to, security guarantees in Ukraine and so forth, but there will be no U.S. troops on the ground or, your interventions from the U.S. further than the guarantees that they're giving. Do you think that the Europeans also feel the same way when it comes to them being able to carry the burden of, supporting Ukraine, or do they need the Americans in this situation and don't see themselves as sophisticated?
I think one of the reasons why the Europeans are failing is that they lack strategic focus. Like him or not, President Putin is very focused. Like him or not, President Trump and the neo-realist White House cadre intellectuals are extremely focused. They know precisely what they want. The problem, the Europeans themselves, they don't know what is the end game. What is the end game? When you talk to European policymakers in London, Paris, Berlin, no one has a clear idea, right? So I'll tell you what's the end game. The key word here, in my opinion, is an English word of French origin, and it's the word longitude, right? Longitude in degrees vis-a-vis the Greenwich median point. So Kiev, the city of Kiev, is precisely on the 30th longitude east. That is very important. The old Russian-Ukrainian border from before the war is precisely on the 40 degrees east. The key to the future negotiations of the coming days, where is precisely the line? So that line, there will be a line drawn, and the Russians and the Americans will tell the Europeans, you know what? There is no NATO, no French, no German soldier east of that line. And I think this is the crux of the issue. Will that line, east of which Putin and Russia will never accept the presence of any French or German or British soldier, will it be the 31st longitude line east? Will it be the 32nd? I think this is exactly what will be negotiated in the coming days. And of course, the Russian will say, wait a minute, you want an international peacekeeping force? Great. Ukraine chose to have soldiers from Germany, Holland, France, for their side of the international peacekeeping force. We, the Russians, we want to have Belarusian,
Yes.
Belarus, Armenian, and Turkish soldiers for our side of the international peacekeeping force. This is exactly what will happen in the coming days.
Okay, well, let's get Dr. Badin's opinion here as, an international law professor. Now, would deploying foreign troops in Ukraine under a so-called peacekeeping mission violate international law if the war continues? And I'm sure you've heard Mr. Fazeli there. He also spoke about the idea of international law. Even though it does exist, it has always been selective, like in the case of Kosovo.
There is a confusion here. Where I can understand that to be I can see the position of the Russian to say that there is international law, but international law is we can change it, and it's with a variable geometry. When we are talking about chess and poker and Go, we are not diminishing of anybody. It's only that poker is a short-term game because the elections in the States are for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Why a president in Russia can be there for 30 years. We have seen Brezhnev staying a long time, while Clinton has seen several people, several presidents. He has seen maybe a dozen of presidents. So this is the matter. It's a matter of fact. It's not a matter of diminishing the value of anybody. The matter is very serious now. There is either we change the rule, which is international law, which is that the boundaries must be respected and sovereignty must be respected, or we say we just throw this rule and we are going to use the force as the only principle on which we can negotiate. And here there is a big difference between the Europeans and the Russians on this matter. The point which is really important is that the Europeans, I don't consider that the Europeans are not well. I don't want to qualify this, but the Europeans, they have the responsibility. They have a long civilization, and the point here today is that they are now seeing that they need the help of the other countries in the world if they want to maintain the rule of law. They need big countries like the Latin American countries. They need the African countries. They need the Middle East countries. Why? Because first of all, they will be stronger, and also the other countries, they need the European position today. Because if we look at the situation in the Middle East, if the countries will not speak about it or will consider that the situation in Ukraine is not their situation, tomorrow when we come to the Palestinian situation or the borders, yes, they will make the application of what will be made in Ukraine, and it will be a jurisprudence against the interests of the Arab states.
But I mean, the application of international law has always been very selective, like you've said there, even when it comes to the Palestinian cause. So even if it does exist, whether you choose to apply it or not depends on your power.
No, sorry, this is not the point. The point is different. The point is that international law is the same. There is one rule, which is international, which is the rule made by international law. The difference, and here your interpretation can come into here, is that the application of international law can be made to people, and they can exclude people from this rule. No, but this is a difference. The difference, when we say that the international law, it's a game that we can change each time, this is a trap where a lot of people are jumping in without even thinking about the consequences. Yes. Is it? The difference is when the rule is there, and it's an intangible rule. So nobody, when somebody will not make application of this rule, he is out of the law, and he is outlaw. If we say on the other side, oh, it can change, then there is no rule at all. So here we have to stick to the fact that there is one single rule applicable to everybody in every country, in every area. And the person or the country who doesn't make application of international law, he is in breach of international law, and the international community must stand to bring him back to
order. Yes. So, well, your point is clear there, Dr. Badin, but unfortunately we're out of time. So thank you both so much. That was Mr. Meher Nicholas Ferzetti, Director of the EU ASEAN Centre, and Dr. Majid Boudin, an international law professor. Thank you both for your insights, and thank you for joining me here on Think Tank. That brings us to the end of this episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the very complex world we live in today. And stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.